A man on the plane was mocking a woman, without realizing who was sitting behind him. The woman, Savannah Phillips, was doing her best to fight back tears. But she couldn't handle the hurtful comments anymore. Desperate to calm herself down, she looked out of the nearby window, trying to regain her composure. Unexpectedly, a stranger stepped up to confront the woman's abuser. Savannah hadn't realized that this man was itching to intervene. Savannah always saw herself as a passionate woman who worked hard in her job and as a mother. Despite her efforts, she carried a lingering feeling of inadequacy. Whenever possible, Savannah would book a plane seat without anyone next to her to avoid the discomfort of being crowded. Unfortunately, on this particular day, the plane was fully occupied, and Savannah began to feel nervous. She tried to stay composed, but the uncertainty of what might happen during the flight overwhelmed her. Savannah had struggled with her weight for most of her life, and the hurtful comments she received due to her appearance had taken a toll on her self-esteem. Body shaming had become a significant issue in America. But Savannah understood that it did not motivate people to lose weight. Savannah's flights were never pleasant due to the cramped cabins. But she had found a solution by booking seats around her to ensure some personal space. However, this time, despite her earlier efforts, the plane was fully booked, and there were no spare seats available. Savannah approached the gate, hoping for a last-minute change. But the check-in assistant shook her head, informing her that there were no cancellations. With no other options, Savannah had to board the packed plane, already feeling the weight of judgment from her fellow passengers. Walking down the aisle, Savannah couldn't help but feel the eyes of other passengers on her, intensifying her anxiety. She repeated to herself, "It'll all be over soon." But the unsettling feeling in her gut persisted, hinting at a potentially unpleasant journey. As Savannah boarded the plane, she could see the crowded cabin and did her best to remain calm. She reached her assigned window seat, but an elderly man in the aisle seat seemed to have a strong disapproval of her presence. He wore bright sunglasses and made it evident that he had an issue with her appearance. He started typing something on his phone, clearly showing his disdain for overweight people. After typing out his message, the man increased his screen's brightness to the maximum and set the text size to the largest possible. He clearly wanted to ensure that his message was unmistakable. With his finishing touches in place, he moved his phone screen toward Savannah. What he hadn't considered was that the man sitting directly behind him could see everything. Savannah had always been a helpful person, and when she noticed the man angling his phone toward her, she asked him what he was doing. He claimed it was to improve his screen visibility, although he continued to finalize his message. But when Savannah glanced at what he had typed, it caught her completely off guard. Receiving such a hurtful message directly in front of her eyes was something she hadn't expected. She quickly averted her gaze and stared out the window, fighting back tears. Little did she know that the man behind them had witnessed the entire incident. It became evident why the man had adjusted his phone settings, until she could see the message clearly. He had typed a message that was far from discreet, with no intention of concealing his cruel opinions. Savannah felt like she was back in high school, enduring teasing all over again. The message on the man's phone read, "Sitting next to a smelly fatty." Savannah was overwhelmed by the hurtful message, but she remained unaware that her silent protector was in such close proximity. Suddenly, the elderly man felt a vigorous tap on his shoulder, and as he turned around, he heard a stern voice saying, "I need to speak to you now." Startled, he got up and followed the young man down the aisle. The man who had confronted him, named Chase Irwin, spoke firmly. "We're switching seats now." Bewildered by the confrontation, the old man reluctantly agreed and returned to his new seat. Chase then turned his attention to the tearful Savannah. Chase's actions turned him into a hero in the eyes of many on the plane. Throughout the flight, Savannah and Chase began talking. Savannah couldn't contain her gratitude. But all she learned about Chase was his name, profession, and the fact that he was traveling alone. Upon landing, Savannah felt compelled to share her story. But she couldn't find Chase on social media. Instead, she wrote a heartfelt Facebook post, urging people to share it until they could find him. The post began, "I'm only sharing this story of what happened to me today in hopes that the person who stuck up for me will somehow be recognized." She continued to describe the incident, including the passengers switching seats, and mentioned the hurtful message. Savannah was taken aback by the overwhelming number of likes, shares, and comments her post received. Numerous users left encouraging comments, assuring Savannah that she was beautiful just the way she was and that she shouldn't let the rude man's personal opinions affect her. Many users also praised Chase for his actions and insisted that his good deed deserved recognition. It didn't take long for Facebook users to identify Chase Irwin. They did so by looking up the page of the restaurant he managed, Dierks Bentley's Whiskey Row Bar and Restaurant in Nashville. People who had read Savannah's heart-wrenching story began to flood the restaurant's page with well wishes and praise for Chase, the hero. Shortly after, the media caught wind of the story. In an interview with News Channel 5, Chase clarified that he hadn't intervened for publicity. When he saw the hurtful text that Savannah's rude seatmate was writing, something inside him snapped. "I was going to wait until the end of the flight to say something. But I could not have this guy sitting next to her this whole flight. And her thinking he's making fun of her." Chase explained. He expressed how deeply it affected him to see someone crying. And when he witnessed Savannah's tears, it struck a chord with him. "It really gets to me deep down when I see someone crying. And when I saw her crying, it really hit me hard. And I actually got sick to my stomach." Chase added. From the beginning, Chase had been paying attention to the situation, as he sensed that the elderly man was excessively rude to Savannah. As soon as he saw the hurtful text, he knew he couldn't let this old man get away with hurting another person so badly. The message the rude man had typed read, "Hey babe. Sitting next to a smelly fatty. She's overflowing over my armrest. I think I'm going to be sick." Chase couldn't believe what he was witnessing. "I began noticing her wiping her tears, and my heart sank," he admitted. He had to do something. Chase took a brief video of the man on Snapchat and added the caption, "This guy, probably mid-50s, just texted his wife that he's sitting next to a smelly fatty and was about to vomit. I watched her read his text. And she's now looking sad." He debated whether he should confront the man immediately, or wait until the plane landed. Eventually, he decided not to tolerate the situation any longer. In an interview with local news, Chase emphasized his strong aversion to discrimination and how he felt compelled to act upon seeing what the elderly man was writing. Rather than waiting until landing, Chase called a flight attendant over to let her know about his intentions. He then approached the man and ordered him to switch seats. At first, the man was puzzled, assuming that Chase was offering him a better seat. He thanked Chase and inquired why. That's when Chase confronted him by saying, "Because you're a heartless person. I read your text. And the girl next to you crying also read your text. You should really take into consideration other people's feelings." This silenced the rude man. And he complied. Before the man could respond further, he took his new seat next to Savannah. He encouraged her not to let the other passengers' words get to her and reassured her that everything would be fine. He said he just happened to see that guy's text message. And he started shaking. He was so mad. And he knew he had to do something. He stopped the flight attendant and told her what he was about to do. Savannah recalled. Savannah's Facebook post received over 7,000 comments and 1,300 shares. When Chase was identified by his Facebook fans, he received a flood of messages thanking him. The story was also shared on the restaurant's Facebook page. And they expressed their pride in Chase and gratitude for the positive response from the community. Savannah's forgiveness shone through in an interview. I would like to add that I do forgive him. I have said lots of things in my life that I shouldn't have. Just like everyone else. If I hated him, I would not be any different. And it is vital to respond with love. Only love brings change in the world. Savannah explained that neither she nor Chase had spoken with the man again. And she expressed her desire not to know him personally. She wanted the story to focus on Chase and the importance of standing up for others. Thanks to Chase's kindness and Savannah's post, they successfully raised awareness about the issue of body shaming, bringing it to the forefront of people's consciousness. Body shaming is a harmful practice that needs to be stopped. And Chase will forever be a true hero in Savannah's eyes and in the eyes of many others. After the death of her husband, Ethan Jenkins, Myra discovered that his entire estate would go to his newest business partner, Carl Ferguson. Myra felt forced to live in a rundown old trailer. A situation that didn't sit well with her children. They were determined to investigate further and were in for a shocking revelation. At her husband Ethan Jenkins' funeral, Carl Ferguson offered his deepest condolences to Myra. The entire community in their Oregon town felt the impact of his passing. Ethan had been the founder of a major clothing store, which started as a small business many decades ago. Myra initially came looking for a job as a seamstress, and soon after, she and Ethan got married. Over the years, her role grew as the business expanded, and she ended up helping him run it. Ethan passed away at the age of 82 after 55 years of marriage, leaving Myra with their 3 children, Marcus, Alexandra, and Johnny, who all accompanied her at the funeral. Some of the company's executives, including Carl Ferguson, were also in attendance. After the funeral, Myra was left waiting with her children, hoping to discuss the division of Ethan's assets. She anticipated receiving half of his estate, with the rest going to their children. At 79 years old, she was ready to let her children handle the business entirely. However, they received a surprising shock when they discovered Ethan's will. According to the will, almost the entire estate, including Myra's mansion, would go to Carl Ferguson. The news didn't sit well with Myra's children, who protested the decision vehemently. Johnny was particularly outraged and vocal, while Alexandra tried to maintain some calm in the situation. Marcus, on the other hand, remained silent but was deeply suspicious of the circumstances. He knew something wasn't right and was quietly devising a plan. Myra, mourning her husband's death and no longer concerned about the house, had started contemplating selling it. However, she felt that something was amiss with the will. They questioned Mr. Rothstein, the lawyer, repeatedly, but he insisted that the will was what Ethan had drafted. The siblings were left frustrated and still determined to find answers. Myra's children requested more information about the will, wanting to understand the details further. After hearing the attorney read Ethan's will, it became evident that the house would go to Myra. as Ethan had bequeathed it to her. Myra's children, Marcus, Johnny, and Alexandra, were eager to help their mother move out of the old trailer and collect their belongings from the mansion. The children were puzzled by their father's decisions but determined to honor his wishes. As they arrived at the trailer, they were met with a sense of abandonment. The trailer had not been used in years, and it bore the marks of neglect. With dust, a stale odor, and dirty dishes in the sink, Alexandra was concerned about her mother's well-being, and urged her to reconsider and move in with them. However, Myra stood her ground, insisting that she had to live in the trailer. She believed it was her father's wish, even if it didn't make sense to her children. Alexandra offered to clean up and make the place more habitable, but Myra was determined to honor her late husband's decision. Back at the mansion, Marcus and Johnny were waiting for a moving truck to transport their belongings. Carl Ferguson, their father's business partner, was present, trying to appear sympathetic to the siblings. Marcus seized an opportunity, claiming that he had forgotten something in his room and needed to retrieve it. Carl offered to accompany him, but Marcus exchanged a significant look with Johnny. They had discussed a plan earlier, and now Marcus was ready to put it into action. Certainly. Here's a rewritten version of the story after the attorney read Ethan's will. It became clear that the house would go to Myra, as Ethan had bequeathed it to her. Myra's children, Marcus, Johnny, and Alexandra, were determined to assist their mother in moving out of the old trailer and gathering their belongings from the mansion. The children were perplexed by their father's decisions but resolute in honoring his wishes. Upon their arrival at the trailer, they were met with an overwhelming sense of neglect. The trailer had not been used in years, bearing the unmistakable signs of abandonment, including dust, a musty odor and dirty dishes in the sink. Alexandra was genuinely concerned about her mother's well-being and urged her to reconsider and move in with them. However, Myra stood her ground, steadfast in her belief that she must reside in the trailer. She was convinced that it was her late husband's desire, even if it seemed incomprehensible to her children. Alexandra offered to clean and make the place more habitable, but Myra remained unwavering in her commitment to uphold her husband's decision. Back at the mansion, Marcus and Johnny awaited a moving truck to transport their belongings. Carl Ferguson, their father's business partner, was present, attempting to appear sympathetic to the siblings. During a conversation with Carl, Marcus inquired about the future of their father's company, and whether it was expanding, implying that their father had hinted at such plans. Carl, eager to discuss his aspirations, detailed their intentions for a European expansion. Marcus, however, presented a hypothetical scenario where their father's intentions were upheld. Carl acknowledged that he was surprised by the situation, but indicated his willingness to respect their father's wishes. Following this conversation, the siblings assisted with packing their belongings into the moving truck. Meanwhile, back at the trailer, Myra and Alexandra dedicated several days to cleaning and renovating the space, transforming it into a more comfortable and appealing dwelling. While the trailer was still a downgrade from the mansion, it became a quaint and peaceful retreat by the sea, where the family gathered to enjoy time together. Myra began to appreciate the simple life it offered. Several months later, Marcus and Johnny uncovered the truth about the fraudulent will, which led to the arrests of Carl Ferguson and Mr. Rothstein. Justice was served, and Myra was finally able to return to her house, which she chose to sell. With the proceeds, her children purchased the land where the trailer was located, and built her a charming tiny home. Myra's love for the sea and her newfound sense of contentment made the trailer and her new home truly special. In the end, the family learned that sometimes life takes unexpected turns. But there might be hidden blessings in the journey.